Hello and welcome to this review of Eiyuu Senki The World Conquest. The gist of the story of Eiyuu Senki is that you, the main character, have been summoned from the heavens, or something, by the leader of an area of Japan. And she wants you to help her take over the world because the best way to stop war is to just win against everyone. Himiko, the girl who summoned you, is unfortunately far too incompetent herself, so you have to do the heavy lifting, while you're working on subjugating the rest of the world to make them pay taxes so you can increase your military. The evil organization Illuminati is doing evil mind control stuff. So your main objective in the story is to take over the world and deal with Illuminati. Defending the different places are historical and fictional characters from a lot of different time periods, all of which are women. Once you take over a place, the girl then joins your harem and praise your great leader skills and the kindness of Nippon. So yeah, nationalism. When the girls join your harem, they will fight for you and you can use money to make them stronger. The combat is turn-based and happens on a grid. The different characters are divided into different classes: blunts, bow, cannon, gun, magic, melee, spear, sword, and throw. The main thing to think about regarding the classes is how to position the characters and what characters to use. Personally, I found this to be really easy. Basically, there are two things you need to make sure of. One is to not start fighting opponents that are clearly late game early on. Basically, stay the fuck away from Russia. And the second is to have a better understanding of battle tactics than whoever wrote the Long Night episode of Game of Thrones. Well then, how did I feel about the gameplay? In my opinion, it's decent enough. It isn't particularly deep or interesting on its own, but I still felt like it was fun overall to take over new areas. It was very satisfying seeing the different characters that inhabited the different areas, and while their personalities were rather shallow, it was enough for some fun short scenes. So the world conquest thing was actually really fun in my opinion. There were, however, some parts I didn't enjoy quite as much. One is certain story elements in the late game that I didn't like that much, and the other being the side stories. In Eiyuu Senki, there are more than 70 characters you can add to the army. Each of these have a short story told through a few events. These are optional, however I have this condition that makes me a slave to fill up the galleries of all visual novels I read. So, of course, I did all the side stories. As for the quality of them, well, it varies. Some were pretty fun, like lifting the curse from a cat girl so she enters the acceptable part of the furry spectrum, so you can smash her. However, a lot of them weren't that great. When there are 70 different characters with short stories, all of them can't be winners. The characters themselves were also mostly very one note, with the stories for each of them not being that long, so most of it honestly felt like filler. The main problem I faced with this was that in the later parts of the game, if I did the side stuff, my progress through the main story moved at a snail's pace. In the side stories, there are also 18 plus scenes for a lot of the girls. These I also found mostly disappointing. The writing of these scenes were bland, and these scenarios weren't that interesting, even when it seemed like it would be spicy as hell based on the art. So for my final thoughts, I really liked going through the main story, especially the earlier part of the game. While neither the writing nor the gameplay were particularly amazing, I think they ended up complementing each other really well, and it just felt really fun to conquer new areas. Later on, I had a problem with the optional side stuff taking way too long, which won't be a problem for those that choose to skip that. The late game was also somewhat disappointing to me in terms of the story direction, but I think some people might like it. For me, it just seemed a bit too convoluted. In the future, I plan on playing through Eiyuu Senki Gold, which to my knowledge is an alternate version. This will probably take a while though. At the moment, I'm too busy reading Funbag Fantasy's side boob story and bashing my head against Crash Bandicoot 4.